Today marks the 2 years anniversary since my wife and I were in Israel during the attack named Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. It was named that by Hamas. The deadliest assault on Israel in modern times and the first large-scale invasion of its territory since the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Well, on this edition of the Endtime Show, we're going to reflect back on that day and share how God's protective hand was evident over our entire tour that year. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave Robbins with Endtime Ministries, and I do thank you for joining us on this edition of the Endtime Show. And I say us because I have a very special guest here with me today. My wife, lovely wife Jana, is joining me on the program because it is a very momentous day for us,
Yes.
a day that we will never, ever, ever forget. 2 years ago today, October 7th, when Hamas invaded in southern Israel, and we were in Israel at that point. And so we're going to reflect back on that day, and wow, what a day it was, Jan.
Absolutely. It was life-changing for not only us, but the nation of Israel as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll never be the same.
No.
And so, but now we're going to reflect back on the day and talk about what happened. But I want everybody that's going to go, because today's the 7th, and we leave on the 27th.
20 days.
So we've got 20 days before we go on our next Israel tour. And so all of you guys that are going to go on the tour with us, either now or the ones that have already signed up for the May trip, I want to read a scripture for you because I want to kind of set their mind at ease, because Israel's going to remain intact all the way forever.
Yep.
And the Bible says in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 35 through 36, "Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for the light by day, and the ordinances of the moon of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar, The Lord of hosts is his name. So as long as there's a sun and a moon, the Bible says in verse 36, if those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever. So, Jan, as long as the sun and the moon exist, there's going to be an Israel.
Right.
And so we don't have to worry about going over there on a tour and it getting wiped off the face of the map. That's not going to happen. If you believe in the Bible and believe there's a God, and God is all power, has all power in heaven and earth. So very, very thankful for that. There's many really reassuring verses in the Bible that let us know all of the prophecies are going to happen in Israel. Israel proper, the West Bank, everything. It lets us know that they're going to remain intact. Now, they're going to have some conflict, obviously, but Israel's going to be there all the way through. So I'm not really scared or intimidated or anything to go back to Israel. We were just there in June. Everything was very calm, peaceful, and if there's conflict, we just won't go there.
Right.
And so we're going to have a great tour coming up here in 20 days, and we're looking forward to the May trip that's coming. However, the reason for today is because we wanted to go through what happened. We want to reflect back on what happened 2 years ago, October 7th, and it was a great trip. How many people did we have on that trip with us?
39 people with us.
Okay. Yeah, 39 people, and it was, we were just kind of getting started back touring after your dad had passed in 2020. I think we had taken another tour before that. Two tours. This was our third tour.
Yeah.
And the tour was actually going great. I mean, so kind of for people that are interested in this, really quick, walk us through a tour. We leave from Dallas. What do we do? How do we get there?
Well, we actually meet up in New York or Newark, depending, but this time it's New York. And we all meet there together, and we fly to Tel Aviv, about a 10.5-hour flight. We get there. They're there to pick us up in our bus and take us to the hotel to get checked in and get settled, and we start touring the very next morning. So
where's the hotel, the first hotel?
Dan Panorama in Jerusalem.
Right.
And that's where we stay for the first 6 nights before heading up north to the Sea of Galilee area, and where we stay 4.
So most tours start up in the northern by Tiberias and Sea of Galilee. Why do we start in Jerusalem?
Because one of the main goals of our trip is to share with people what we feel like the Bible talks about. We know that the Bible talks about the true meaning of being born again, and so we are laying the foundation so that people can understand what they're actually doing by the time we get up north, and we have time to teach them along the way, and sometimes in the evening what's going to happen, what's the meaning of it. And so we end in Tiberias because that's where we do our baptisms, up by the Sea of Galilee.
Right. So I don't know how many thousands of people we've taken to Israel over the years on all of our tours. Your dad started going in '79, and of course you and I started going, I don't know, years and years ago.
Yeah.
I've been on 20-some tours. You've been on 30-some tours to Israel.
Yeah.
And so we've been there with thousands of people. And when they come back, I've had so many pastors tell me, Dave, man, all the stories I've ever told has just changed. I've read them in the Bible, but having been there and seen it all, it's changed my life, and all my stories I've ever preached have just changed. Now that I've seen it, I've experienced the culture and everything. So very, very thankful for the tours. However, on October 7th, 2 years ago, well, on October the 5th, I think we got there. On October 6th is our first touring day, and it was a great trip. I remember we start up on the first day. We get up, everybody, we're going to the Mount of Olives, where Jesus ascended from heaven. It's where he taught the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24. A lot happens with the Mount of Olives in Scripture, and that's where Jesus is coming back to plant his feet on the Mount of Olives, Zechariah chapter 14. So we start out there, and then how does the first day progress?
So it's a lot, but everybody has adrenaline flowing, and so it's exciting, and people are like, wow, we're going to see the Mount of Olives. But we start up there, and we make our way on foot down the Palm Sunday pathway into the Garden of Gethsemane, where they say that Jesus prayed the last prayer that he prayed right before he was arrested to be crucified. And and they think that that's the area because of the topography of everything and the olive tree, multiple olive trees that are in the area that they've dated back over 2,000 years old. And you can tell by their root system and different things. So they've got them all in cages to be protected. But anyway, we go there, you talk about what happened that night and how significant it was. And then once we're finished there, we cross the street and go down into the Kidron Valley, which is a very awesome place to be, because that's where the Battle of Armageddon is going to culminate, right there in front of the Eastern Gate, and that's where the Lord's going to come down and meet the world armies that are coming against Israel to fight. And also, Zechariah's tomb, Jehoshaphat's tomb are in that valley. They both talk about the Battle of Armageddon in Scripture, and they're there waiting. And of course, David's rogue son Absalom is there as well. But then we walk through there, do the Scriptures, talk about it, and we walk down this long lane, and there's an Arab community on the left side, the old city of David's on the right side, and you get dumped out right by the Pool of Siloam, which is really significant, and they've done major excavating, especially post-COVID and post this war. They've really been busy. But that's where actually maybe someday, one day, we'll be able to go there and walk up the pilgrim pathway.
So we're not promising people we can do that this trip.
We're not promising anybody anything, but whatever it is it'll be a cherry on top if we get to. But the drivers will pick us up there. We get bused over into Bethlehem, which is the West Bank. It's actually controlled by the Palestinians, but we go there with no issue and have lunch, go to the Good Shepherd store, which is a Christian Palestinian pastor that we are very good friends with, Tanasa Boedo, and then we go to the Shepherd's Fields, and then we head back to the hotel.
So all of that happens on day one.
That's correct.
So we're cramming a lot on our tours. A lot happens, and it's a lot of walking. It's a lot of, you're going to see everything, because your dad, he took so many tours that over the years that he thought, nah, we really don't need to see that, but we've got to see that, because some people are going to go on this tour with us for the first time ever. They'll save their whole life just to go to Israel once. Yeah. And we want to give them the most memorable experience that they can. So we only go see what you absolutely have to see if you go to Israel.
Or what you must see. Because I tell people we have a boutique tour that we've taken all the fluff out, and what you absolutely must see while you're in Israel is what we have put into our trip.
Yes, absolutely. And so day one, this is October the 6th of 2023. Well, then we come back to the hotel and we feed everybody as much as they want to eat. Then we put them in bed and say, okay, tomorrow morning we're going down by the Dead Sea, down in the Jordan Valley, and we're going up on Mount Masada. And so we go to bed, get up the next morning. Hey, it's all great. We say a word of prayer on the bus, and we head down. We drive all the way down there, the lowest point on earth, and we're driving along the Dead Sea. It's beautiful. We get down to the bottom. We go up on Mount Masada, and we're up there walking around. We're talking about what happened there with the Jews that ended up committing suicide because of as a result, a revolt from the Russians that were encamped about them. They were getting ready to crash through, and these people, obviously, it was a horrific type situation, but we're up there talking. Edo's with us, our guide. Many of the people have been to Israel with us. They know Edo. And we're up there on October 7th, early in the morning, and what happens?
So about, I would say it was like 9:15 by the time we got the cable car up on the top of the mountain. We were up there talking. There's this little area that he does a presentation talking about how the Nation of Israel brings their IDF soldiers up there to swear them in as service to the Israeli army. And he does this whole reading, and we talk about it, and we're standing there, and we hear these loud, like boom, 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 like the most Taj Mahal fireworks show you've ever seen in your life times about 20. Yeah. And then we don't know what's going on, and the office calls our guide and says, there's been a bombing, we've been attacked, you need to get everybody back to the hotel. Yeah. So we turn right back around, we go back to our bus, not knowing anything, and everybody's a little freaking out. Yeah. And Ito, our guide, who's been a part of the IDF for years, and he's helped a lot in that area, he got multiple communications from people talking about how bad it was. And then he tells us it was really bad. And then before we get to the hotel, he goes, I mean, like hundreds killed. And so that's what happened next. And we went to our hotel.
So and we later learned that Hamas had invaded that morning. This was 2 years ago today. They invaded that morning in the south. We were actually up on Mount Masada. We were 60 miles from where they invaded. We were that close. And they came in, killed over 1,200 people at the music festival, and they were going through the kibbutz and many different things through there, going along the road. And I've actually seen videos. The videos are out there to watch. They were just standing in the road, and when cars were coming down, they would shoot right into the cars, and it was horrific. And the largest terrorist invasion in Israel's history, and the most Jews killed in one day since the Holocaust. And so that's where my wife and I were up on Mount Masada the morning that happened. And the bombs, we know now that they were Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system deploying to go up. And I mean, we've seen that a lot especially over the last few, like in June and things, where Israel's Iron Dome has just saved their life. And they were deploying to go up and hit missiles that were coming in from Hamas. They were shooting missiles. It was just, it was crazy.
They shot 2,700 rockets that morning at one time. And I think they got all of them but 3 from there with the Iron Dome.
So I looked at Ito because I thought that maybe it was because Israel's always training. You see their tanks all out in the West Bank, and you think, well, maybe they were just training some tanks and they were just, firing those things off. But it was super loud. And then, but it was on if you're up on the Mount Masada and you look to the west, there's a huge mountain range. That's why it's called the West Bank. There's a huge mountain range, and on the other side, that's Jerusalem. And the bombs, we didn't see anything, but they were on the other side of that big mountain range. But we're down there where it's almost like got a megaphone coming over the top of that mountain. And man, those things were super loud. And I looked at Ito, who's an ex-Navy SEAL, and I don't want to alarm the 39 people that are standing behind us, but I was kind of like, what was that? And he was like, well, let's just keep on walking. So we kept on walking a little bit, and then immediately gets a phone call. Get those people down, get them back to the hotel, because we've been invaded in the south. And of course, by the time we were back to the hotel, all 3 of his sons had already been called up. And they're all in the military, and they had already been called up and said, we're going to Gaza. And I'm talking about within an hour, Israel immediately mobilized, and man, they're going. Well, of course, a lot of people that follow us, they know about Joe Golden, and a really good friend of ours. I'll get into a little bit of his testimony on the backside of the bottom of the hour here. But at 6:30 in the morning is when Hamas invaded. And within just a few, like 45 minutes, he was already he had got the call right as soon as they invaded. He's one of the Special Forces commanders, the Delta Force for the IDF. He got the call. He jumps in his pickup truck, which is a 4-door pickup truck. He goes and picks up 4 of his guys who are on his Delta Force team. And they didn't even go to the base in Israel. They head straight for Gaza. And I did WhatsApp with Joel this morning. I said, tell me what was going on. He said, well, obviously a lot of it's still confidential, but he said, he was telling me that he got in his vehicle, and with his guys, they head straight down there, 45 minutes from his doorstep. It comes up on the first car that had been shot into on the road. The people are still in the car, bullet holes all through the windshield. Hamas had just shot him in there and left him. They're just killing people. And so they go a little ways, and he engages with Hamas, and Hamas is his guys, part of the Delta Force Command. They're hanging out the windows of his pickup truck, shooting at Hamas, and it's a firefight. And Joel, from the time he got up that morning when he got the call, he was in firefights for 50 straight hours, no sleep, over 2 days. And he told me it was 50 hours before he finally got to lay down in some house that they were at, and set up like a little fort type thing, and he was able to finally go to sleep after 50 hours of fighting. I'm talking about firefights. And so it was a horrific situation that morning. And of course, like I said yesterday on the radio, the hostages that were taken then, they killed over 1,200 people. They took 250 hostages. 48 of those hostages, after 2 years, are still down in Gaza. 47, so many of them have passed away. The rest of them, there's one woman that's left down there. And, you know, I don't even want to imagine how it's been for a female to be down there for 2 years. But there's still, what's happening presently is all of the United States and many other different nations are down in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, trying to negotiate. I think everything's pretty much agreed upon, except Hamas is still kind of balking a little bit about who's going to run this and what's going to happen, and we're trying to figure some things out. They think they have it across the finish line. However, when it comes time to release the hostages, because the hostages are Hamas's bargaining chip, and once they release the hostages, then Israel could just, you know, if something doesn't go right, then it's going to be very, very bad. And so we'll see how that goes, because again, we go there in 20 days.
Right.
But Gaza's way in the southwest corner. We're clear up by Jerusalem and even to the north up to Tiberias.
And even before the Gaza invasion from Gaza, we told everybody, we've always told everybody on our tours, when we talk about what we do and where we go, we've always shared with them that we do not go to Gaza or near Gaza, because if anything was going to happen, it would be down in Gaza. Mm-hmm. And then that's exactly what had happened. And the last 30 plus years that I've been going, 30 plus times that I've been going to Israel, we've never one time went to Gaza. Mm-hmm. So we already knew it was a hotbed and it could be a problem. And so we just took that precaution. For all these years, we've done that. So. Yeah.
It's crazy, because Ariel Sharon in 2005 traded land, promised land, for peace, and that's where most of the conflict has happened, right down there in Gaza. Of course, the Hezbollah and Lebanon and really all around Israel, but right there in that land where he gave them to trade land for peace, which some people say was a kind of a test run for a Palestinian state, and look what they've got.
Yeah, and that's been their problem all along. They don't listen to God. They're disobedient to what God says. He said, don't trade land for peace, and you drive the heathen out, and instead they trade land for peace and keep the heathen in, and this is what they get. Right. But if they would have went back to the original commandment and done it all of this time, they wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah.
And
wow. Okay.
I mean, that's sort of, I'm acting like you right now. But.
Yeah, come on, preach, Jen. Anyway, that's good. No, the fact is, when you get away from God's commandments, regardless of what it is, God knows best. And when you get off of God's plan, man, you get off into murky waters at that point, and you run into trouble. Because it's not in man that walks to direct his own footsteps, but the footsteps of a good man are ordered of the Lord. So if you stay right in alignment with his plan, it's all going to work out.
Right.
So I just wanted to reflect today, because today, obviously, October 7th, 2025, we're 2 years past that. But it has, God helped us along the way. God didn't say, you guys are stuck there in Israel. That's not the way God works. God did not do that to us. We were stuck in a hotel a lot. We got to go. Our guide was trying to get us to go tour, because some people just went there the first time and their only time in their life. They went to Israel, and we get the next morning. It was October the 8th of 2023. Israel declares a state of war. Well, we're there for 8 days. We didn't fly out. That happened on a Saturday. We didn't fly out till the next Sunday.
Yes.
So we were there 8 days during the declared state of war, and that was it was kind of dicey.
Well, the first day we got to tour a little bit. We got to go to the Jewish agency, and we got to go to the tomb, the garden tomb, which was interesting, because we had the sirens go off while we were there, and luckily they had put us down in the bomb shelter to do your presentation. And then we also got to go to something we've never done before, and that was a sifting project where they took the stuff that was thrown off the Temple Mount into the Kidron Valley, and they've been cleaning that area up, and they were able to keep everything that was thrown from the Temple Mount into the Kidron Valley to save, and they've been able to get artifacts from the first and second temple era and to prove that they have a right to be in the land. And so we have never done that. So that was the first time I've ever done something like that. So we did do that differently. And we also went to another garden that was a prayer garden or something. We were trying to find things to do that wasn't closed.
Out in the Judean hills.
Right.
So that was pretty cool.
Right. So we did do that, but that was basically all the touring we got to do.
Yeah. And then, so how many days do we stay in Jerusalem before we head up north?
We do 6 nights.
6 days.
So it's 5 full days of touring while we're in Jerusalem.
So 5 days, 6 nights.
Yes.
And then we head north. And so we see everything that's the most important stuff to see in Jerusalem, the Temple Mount and everything else. We didn't get to on that trip.
Right.
But we will in this one coming up in 20 days. However, there comes a time when we need to leave. Well, on this trip, everything's totally messed up. We're supposed to go north, and we had a very important meeting at a little coffee shop with a guy. And so walk us through how God was leading and guiding us because of the situation going on, because of the war. Because this is what I want everybody to do, is to know that God did not forsake us. He didn't say just like, you guys are on your own, which a lot of tour groups, they were going nuts.
Yes,
they were going to the airport trying to get out, and they were paying like $5,000 a ticket just to get to Cyprus or to Dubai or something like that. That was not to get them home.
Right.
That was to get them just to another country. Then they had to try to get a ticket to get home. And so who knows what they paid before it was all over with. We had somebody try to charter us a plane for $11,000 a person. Where was that plane going to take us? It wasn't home. It was...
No, it was going to just charter us somewhere.
Yeah, like Cyprus or someplace.
Yeah, and then we would have to find our way home from
there.
Yeah,
so that was, for our tour group, that was close to $500,000 just for a plane to get us out of the country, but then you got to get your way home from Cyprus. So it was really a mess, and we had people on our tour that went to the airport and came back and was like, there's no way. And some people were going to Jordan to try to get out. And you met somebody in the elevator, and tell everybody what happened when you met somebody in the elevator and their tour guide.
So I asked her what she was doing there. She said she was a tourist with a group. She said, we're just all trying to get out. And I said, well, what about your leader? What about your tour leader? And she goes, oh, they've already left. And I'm like, yeah, they left their group, and then she was just floundering trying to get out of there. And so
so she's in a foreign country with a tour group, and the tour guide leaves.
The leader of the tour left, yes.
And so they're stuck trying to get out of a foreign country, which it would be a mess. Now, I will tell everybody that goes on one of our tours, we'll never do that.
No.
And one of the things that we'll have Ito be our guide for the rest of my life if he stays alive long enough, because he did not leave us. He stayed with us all the way, the whole time.
Yep.
Even though his kids went down in the military to the Gaza, his wife was by herself. He stayed with the tour group the entire time till we got on the plane that next Sunday.
Yes.
I will never forget it as long as I live. And I was very, very, very thankful for that. I believe I know God had his hands upon us. But
he did.
The little meeting that we had, well, we're coming up to a break here, so I hate to kind of cut this off, but the story where we're at in our time in Israel was we're getting ready to head north. We stay so many nights and days in Jerusalem. Then we go north, normally to Tiberias, where we're going to tour the northern part of Israel.
Yes. And
obviously do the baptisms in the Jordan River, where it comes out of the Sea of Galilee. It's beautiful. You can understand why Jesus spent so much time there. But I want to get into how we ended up out on the Mediterranean Sea, rather than going up there. We'll get into that story on the backside of the break. I don't want to just cut it in half here. But did God have his hand on us or what, Jan? I mean, you got to say that Almighty God was just right there with us in Israel.
Yes, he did. One thing I did want to interject from a conversation we had a little bit ago that we didn't bring up. about when Israel didn't obey God and they traded land for peace.
Yeah.
I thought we wanted to talk
So we got
about
15 seconds,
okay.
and then we'll dive straight off into that comment on
Okay.
on the backside of the break here. But certainly looking forward to going to Israel here in 20 days.
Yes.
I know it's going to be a great trip, and then we've still got a lot of spots left open for May, right?
We do.
Okay.
A reminder of the breaking news this hour. At least 22 people are reported to have died in a strike in Gaza.
The rise of Islam.
We're trying to bring answers for so many families desperately.
Is the Israel-Hamas-Iran conflict World War III? So let's talk about the four horsemen. What do these horses symbolize? These are the four spirits of the heavens which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. In the end time, the true people of God will not be weak, anemic, and defeated. These prophesied events are revealing we are quickly approaching the time of the Great Tribulation right now.
Now streaming on OnlySource and available to order at endtime.com/green. Go to endtime.com/green or call 800-ENDTIME.
What if you could understand Bible prophecy? Dave Robbins, the host of the Endtime Show's TV and radio programs, is holding a free prophecy conference near you. Gain peace and understanding about what the Bible says concerning end-time prophecy. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com/events to see when Dave will be in a location near you.
Welcome back, everybody. And if you're just joining us in the second part of the hour here, my wife Jana and I are reflecting on our original tour 2 years ago, October 7th, when Hamas invaded in the south while we were in Israel. And also, before we get back into this, I want to mention that my wife and I will be in Anaheim, California this coming weekend, Saturday and Sunday. All the information is at endtime.com on the events and the conferences tab. So Jan, we normally spend so many days in Israel or in Jerusalem, and then we head north and go up to the Sea of Galilee, Tiberias region, which is just kind of like an oasis out in the desert. However, it didn't happen like that on this tour. So walk us, because I know God had his hands upon us. People are going to Israel, people are going to the airport trying to get out. It was just utter chaos. But we prayed and we felt like God would really just have us stay there. We had guaranteed tickets out on the next Sunday on El Al. And so we thought, man, I told the group, I said, look, I think we're just going to stay together. And I'll teach you guys Bible studies every night. And that actually went awesome.
It did.
And then we ended up, flying out on the next Sunday. But instead of going up to the Sea of Galilee, we ended up out on the Mediterranean Sea and walk people through really a miracle that God did for us.
So our guide was really great, Ito. He was scrounging and trying to find things that were actually open that we could go see, because a lot of the people, everybody is all hands on deck until you're 60 years old in Israel to be called up at any moment. That they need you, you get called up. Well, a lot of the workers that were working the different sites, they were called away to go fight the Gaza war. And so there were places that were closing. They had nobody to man them anyway. It wasn't necessarily that they felt like they were in such danger. It was the fact that everybody was down in Gaza fighting the war. And so Ito has a lot of pull and a lot of contacts, and he was calling around, scrounging around, trying to get us a place to go. Well, he found us a place to go, and it was Mike Evans's American Museum or whatever it's called. I'm not remembering.
Friends of Zion.
Friends of Zion, that's correct. And while the people were going through that, you and I met with Ito and Samuel Smadja, who is the owner of Sarel, who we personally use for our land operations while we're over there. And we met with him, and we were trying to figure out, what are we going to do? We can't go up north because they've closed everything because it's a Syrian border and a Lebanese border. And so he goes, well, I tell you what. He said, "I've just bought this Ramada up in Netanya," and he said, "I'm going to move your group up there," which they've only been hit by one rocket in history of all of this conflict in the past, even because it's the furthest away and you can't reach them that easily. And so he goes, "We're going to move everybody up there," and so and the hotel was nice. He moved us all up to Netanya, and instead of going up north, everything was closed. And we get there, we get settled in and get dinner, and one of our guys in our group decided to go rogue, and he decided to try to get a taxi to take him up to the Sea of Galilee. And they came and told him, "If you get in that taxi, we are going to arrest you because everything is closed down. The roads are closed down. The Sea of Galilee area, all of it was closed down, no travel zone." And so we were basically stuck right there in Netanya, but it was in a really nice hotel. We didn't feel threatened, even though the threat was in our mind. We knew, but that was how we ended up going up right on the Mediterranean Sea.
Well, so if I remember right, what happened is that we were going to head north, and Samuel Smadja said, well, and I remember talking to Edo, and Hezbollah up in Lebanon was threatening to fire all those thousands of rockets into the north. So Samuel Smadja said, "I think if you guys go up north, there's a chance of you getting trapped up there and you won't be able to make it out to the airport."
Right.
So he said, "Why don't I put you in my hotel out there on the Med?" So we go out to the hotel on that Ramada, and they had already started bringing in refugees from Gaza and putting them in a hotel. So the hotel was just full of people, but they were still very accommodating to us. It was very nice. And when we went up there, we find out that the day that we were supposed to go do the baptism to the Sea of Galilee, we were going to go over to do the baptism and then come back. That morning, Hamas threatened, "Today we're going to bomb," and they closed it all down.
Right.
And we were like, "Oh man!" So we had people in our group saying, "Look, we don't want to get on the planes here in a few days to get up out of here until we're baptized." And so I said, "No matter what happens, I'll baptize you before we leave." And so I was going to baptize them in the swimming pool downstairs. Well, as the war progressed, they closed all the swimming pools in all of Israel because they didn't want a lot of people gathering in one spot.
Right.
And so I thought, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got to baptize people in bathtubs or something. Well, everybody's room had a shower in it.
Right.
And I'm like, this is getting crazy. Well, because I could see from our hotel room swimming pools everywhere, but nobody was allowed to get in their swimming pool because they didn't want people congregating. So I'm out one morning, and I had people saying, I was teaching Bible studies every night. People were saying, "Want to get baptized before we leave." So I'm sitting one morning drinking a cup of coffee, looking out the Mediterranean Sea. Beautiful, serene, but also those Apache attack helicopters were coming every 30 minutes with the big long guns out the front, patrolling because Hamas had invaded through air, land, and sea. A lot of them had come out in them big rubber boats and come and invaded from the Mediterranean Sea. So the Apache attack helicopters were just all over the place. I'm sitting here looking at the Mediterranean Sea, and I thought, man, here's a big giant baptismal right here. And so I went, we had the meeting that night, and I told everybody, I said, "I tell you what I'll do. I'll baptize you guys out in the Med." Well, I told Edo that, our guide, and he was like, "Dave, I've never even heard of anybody wanting to be baptized in the Mediterranean Sea." I said, "Well, we're going to do it." So the next morning we got up, went down, the whole group got on the bus, went down to the Mediterranean, and because there were police out there on the beach, remember, we went down there and they would only allow 10 at a time to go out there. So we go out there, the helicopters are flying overhead, and I'm baptizing people, and the waves are crashing over us and knocking us everywhere. But we baptized, I don't know, maybe 18 people, yeah. And it was a wonderful baptism. And I mean, we had a move of God right there in the midst of wartime.
Right.
And it was a revival that was happening. And little did I know, God was setting a lot of things in motion on that trip. When we were there during the declared state of war, everybody was going, again, it was utter chaos. All the tour groups were getting out of there. They were going to the airports. They were like, we don't want to be stuck here in times of war. I'm like, God's going to get us out of here. And he did. But I was, during that time, I was receiving phone calls from missionaries, pastors all over the world praying with me, and I had radio and television stations contacting me. You, Dave Robbins with Endtime Ministries? Yes, we want to do a interview with you. Can you go live in 30 minutes? And I'm like, I guess. So I took my computer and I got up on top of the roof of the hotel, laid a bunch of lawn chairs out there, and I had me an office set up, and I was doing, like at midnight, I was doing radio and television interviews from stations I had never heard of, but they wanted to get an interview, and everybody else was just, it was utter chaos. But I told them, I said, we're staying here. Well, once they found that out, I did radio and television interviews all the way to the time we left, and man, it was so awesome because I know God's hand was on it, because End Time, God was expanding End Time's reach in the midst of all this chaos and war. And I'm thinking, God, did you do this on purpose? I don't know what was going on, but it was just
the security at our
was
hotel.
horrific. Yeah.
The security at our hotel called Ito, our guide, and was like, "Hey, there's a man sitting outside on the roof. And is that a threat, or is that something we should be worried about?" And Ito goes, "Oh, no, don't worry about that. That's just our pastor."
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so they were spying on you because they saw you out there looking a little shady with all your props.
Well, I knew it got real, which it was very real, obviously, when we heard the bombs go off and the missiles coming in and all this other. But when I looked over that balcony in the hotel and I saw the whole foyer of the hotel, the whole lobby, full of military.
Yes.
Because they didn't know if an attack was going to come, because everybody was gathered together back into the hotel, and it would have been a prime target. And so when I looked over that balcony and saw the whole lobby full of Israeli military ready to stop an invasion if they come in the front door, I thought, man, this is very real. And I would just go into prayer and saying, God, you got to help us here, give us direction. And he was. Yeah. He got us out in Netanya. We stayed out there, and so that was our Israel trip. I mean, I had missionaries and pastor friends and people praying for us everywhere. And every time just about that we go on a conference now, they were like, "Oh yeah, we were praying for you guys when you were stuck in Israel." And and God has done some miraculous things since then. And I know we're coming up to another break here, but we'll talk about some things on the backside of the break here about Joel Golden and some things God has done. But God was opening up some big doors for us, and really, Jan, it was a faith builder for me.
Right.
Because I can look back at that trip, and there's nobody on the planet that could tell me there's not a God. There's nobody on the planet that could convince me that God does not do miracles in 2025, that He's not with us. He's walking right along beside us. God knew before we ever went on that trip that was going to happen.
Yes.
But I've got a lot of work to do. We both do. And so I had to come back.
All right.
And God had to bring us back. And so I just know that God was with us. He's doing miracles. A lot of people, there are people out there that don't even believe in that.
All right.
But I'm telling you, is there anybody on earth that could convince you that there's not a God, He's real, He's right here with us, and that He does miracles today?
No, they can't. And one of the things I wanted to interject was about the Jews that were keeping the Sabbath. Even though they don't have the full understanding of everything, they're doing the best they know how, and they are trying to observe the things that they were taught by their parents and grandparents, and they're trying to honor God in the best way they know how. But the secular Jews were the ones
Hamas invaded on the Sabbath.
That's correct.
And so what happened?
And the secular Jews were having a big party. They were out having a concert. They're the ones that were attacked, and they left the Jews alone that were observing the Sabbath.
Yeah, so the thing is, though, I don't know if Hamas knew they were observing the Sabbath and say, we're not going to attack that house. But they were going from house to house down through there, and for some reason, they skipped the Jews' homes. They didn't go to those homes, and all of them were the ones observing the Sabbath. Now,
they may have not known it was a Sabbath, but God did.
Well, that's the thing.
Even though we observe the Sabbath every day, but...
Right. But still, they were doing the best they can to serve God.
Right.
And for some reason, we were told by a very reliable source who was down there that the people that were, most of them that were observing the Sabbath, the Hamas didn't go to their house.
That is correct.
And so
And one family that did get, I don't know if they were observing the Sabbath, but they were laying on a family Bible, and the family Bible got preserved.
yeah,
Even though they were killed.
yes, and it was a horrific situation. You can't even until you're there. I mean, I told everybody yesterday on the radio. Imagine if it was a loved one of your loved ones, or somebody that was down there and had been there for 2 years.
Yeah.
And they have been hammering down on Netanyahu. We got to get these people back, and that's why a lot of the Jewish families there, they have people that are hostages. They just contacted the Nobel board to try to get Trump the Nobel Peace Prize for what he's doing right now, because they're saying even though we've been living in darkness, we know that Donald Trump is doing everything he can to try to get these hostages back. And so it's a huge thing that's been happening, and we're reflecting back. On the backside, I'll tell about a miracle that's been happening as a result of a lot of this on the backside of this miracle. So. Many people argue America is not mentioned in the prophecies of the Bible. But they will miss so much about the coming events that will happen in the end time if they don't get that understanding. What do these beasts symbolize? That's what we need to answer. Because if we can't understand what these beasts symbolize, there's no point in even studying this, right? If you don't believe that America is mentioned in the Bible, you're going to be stuck when it comes to figuring out all these prophecies. But once you understand this, America has a prophesied future. It's given to us in the Bible. And the America will not be part of the world government, but we're going to be protecting Israel against the world government all the way to the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Now streaming on OnlySource and available to order at endtime.com/America. Go to endtime.com/America or call 1-800-ENDTIME.
You know, Jan, we've been, like I say, I've been 20-some times to Israel. I know you've been over 30 times. We're so blessed to have been able to do that. I've never felt a time where I was scared of anything. I'm not scared of, I'm not a scary type person, or I'm not somebody who scares easily. Some people think I'm kind of scary, but I'm not somebody who scares easily. But even during this time of war, I knew God's with us.
Right.
And he was walking along beside us, and it's really a faith builder to me to saw how the meeting with Samuel Smodge and things that, just different things that happened. And I thought, you know, we never would have made a decision like that, but only God. And God was helping, leading, and guiding us, and he got us home safe. Everybody got home safe. All is well. And I'm very, very, very thankful for that. And so, you know, in going here in another 20 days, going back in May and things like that, we watch, we do our research, and then, but we're relying on God for a lot of this, and I'm very, very thankful that he's there with us. One of the things that has happened post the Gaza situation, the really bad stuff, right there in the beginning, at the very beginning of this year, God, in December of last year, God really connected me with Joel Golden. And I see how, I understand what the Gaza situation is all about. I understand the peace agreement that's coming through the West Bank and everything that's coming prophetically. And I know I've heard your dad talk about it for just years and years and years. I was talking to some friends of ours last night. We went to dinner, and I was telling them how your dad, Irvin Baxter, talked about this for years, but yet we're watching it happen. What he talked about since in the 60s, and we were raised on, and we heard him talk about it all those years. Now here we are watching it come to pass.
Right.
And I told who we went to dinner with last night, I said, I looked back there and looked at the big library of books Irvin Baxter had in his office. And I told him one time just before he passed, I said, you know, I don't have 50 years to read all this stuff. And he said, Dave, you don't have to. He said, that's what God used me for. He said, you're in a very privileged spot, Dave. He said, you are young enough. He said, you understand all this stuff, but you're so young enough to have because Dad was kind of getting wore out at the end. You know that. And he said, Dave, you're young enough to have you know the material, but you're young enough to have the energy to do something about it. And here we are. And it wasn't, but within maybe 6 or 8 months after that, your dad passes.
Right.
And here we are watching this stuff come to pass in great detail. Everything that's happening in the West Bank, this Gaza situation certainly could lead to it. Depends on who runs it, who controls it, the International Supervisory Board and everything they're talking about. But they did leave a couple clauses in there that dealt with eventually leading to a Palestinian-led situation here and in potentially the West Bank. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, you know what, they're going to do this and maybe try to force Israel and the Palestinians into something in the future. Certainly could be after World War III. But I'm watching the Joel Golden situation and how God is just working a miracle, because I didn't even know Joel 2 years ago, right, in October 7th when we were there. I've known Joel less than a year. Now, our missionary knew him. Well, that's not true. Joel has been attending our Bible. Joel knew us, but I didn't know him. I'll put it like that. He had been learning our Bible from learning the prophecies of the Bible through some partners of ours that lived down here in South Padre Island, down in South Texas. They had went over to Israel, got him born again. He was part of working with our missionary there, and he had been attending these Bible studies. So he said he knew me for a couple years. I didn't meet him until December of last year. And then God just super glued us together. I mean, we're great friends, and certainly what's going on in the future, God, after the Gaza situation died down, when October 7th happened, he went and fought for 4 months down in Gaza, solid. When he came out of that and it kind of died down, they started talking to him about retirement and some different things, and finally gave him, I'm going to hit the highlights here, but finally gave him the position over as the protector, him and his brigade, as the protector of Jerusalem in the near future. And then during the Gaza war, he had been fighting 25 years for the IDF, they promoted him to a 2-star general in the IDF. His office is in the bottom of the Supreme Court in Israel. And now he has a position over as the protector of Jerusalem. Now imagine a good friend of ours, a born-again guy, the protector of Jerusalem for the foreseeable future. They loved the job that he was doing so much that the upper brass came to him and said, Joel, would you like to be the protector of Judea, Samaria as well? Joel said, Dave, every time they tell me this stuff, I'm thinking end time. I know what's coming, the West Bank situation, the prophecies that are going to be fulfilled, what your dad talked about all those years. And now we're sitting here watching all this stuff coming to pass. And the protector, Jan, of the region that Jesus talked about in the end time, where the Jews are going to have to flee, when Joel was just put over Jerusalem, he and I had a conversation the first part of the year. And he said, Dave, I have the ability. You know about our door knocking campaign. We're going to go in 3 years after the final 7 years starts. And your dad set it up to where he envisioned us having a door knocking campaign. Well, Joel said, I know about all that. But he said, me being the protector of Jerusalem, I'll be able to have access to the emergency broadcasting system where I can say, get on there and say, Jews, there's something going to happen. We're, foreseeing an event. You got to leave. But he would only be able to suggest that they leave at that point. Well, when they put him as the protector over Judea, Samaria, he said, now I can declare martial law and force them to leave the region and come into Israel proper. Now, Jan, you and I both know the fulfillment of prophecy that we're staring right in the face here. Oh. Your dad didn't know any of this 5 years ago. And here we are. Your dad passed November 3rd, 2020. So your dad passed less than a month. It'll be 5 years. And you and I and End Time and everybody that follows us, the thing is, Jan, is we don't do these radio and TV programs and the magazine, the college in Israel, and all the balls that we have in the air. We're not doing all that just because we want to be famous or that we're trying to make money, and we're not trying to make a name for ourselves. God called your dad into this stuff, well over 60 years ago probably. And then he gave him all the prophecies, so that your dad understood all that. He wrote books and DVDs and all, been on the television and radio program for years. And then your dad passes. And now here, you and I work here at Endtime, and we're going to Israel a couple times a year, and I'm watching, you and I are both watching the fulfillment of those prophecies. Your dad and I never had, 5 years ago, your dad and I never had a conversation about central bank digital currencies. And yet here we are, they're trying to cram central bank digital currencies down the throats of most of the nations on the planet.
Yeah.
And that is one of the, with central bank digital currencies, digital ID, the blockchain technology, all of those ledgers and different things, electronic ledgers, where they can track every single thing you do. Electronic ledgers, everything. He bought gas here. He did this, blah, blah, blah. He purchased this. He got a loan for this. Everything. They can track everything you do, and the algorithms of AI are set up to even control whether you get a loan now or not. This algorithm, well, on Facebook, they bought a car, but they say they can afford this payment. No, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So algorithms, AI, with all this technology, we didn't even talk about any of this stuff 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And now here we are watching all this stuff come to pass. It's just an absolute miracle to me. We actually live in one big miracle. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so I know you see it as well because Irvin Baxter was your dad.
Right.
And so what do you think about that?
I think that he knew it was all going to come down. He just didn't know how. And he knew that because the Bible never lies, you got to, the scriptures are all going to be fulfilled. And in order for that to happen, God was going to have to move the pieces to make it happen.
Right.
And we didn't understand it. He always just walked as he was led by the Spirit. And so I think he knew in his spirit and his mind that things would happen, but he didn't understand how it was going to happen.
And you know what, Jan? We don't claim to have every answer.
Right.
But we had the Lord speak to us one time, and I'll have you tell everybody about this really quick. We had the Lord speak to us after your dad passed at a board meeting, and this is how I'm focused. What did God say to us at the meeting?
He said that when Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt, he followed the cloud. And that when Irvin was here leading Endtime, he followed the cloud. And now we all have to follow the cloud. And he said, when I took Moses, the children of Israel asked me why. And I said, it was because I wanted him to be with me. And he said, and when you've asked me why I took Irvin. And he said, it was because I wanted him to be with me. And then he said, and Irvin and Judy didn't start this ministry, I did. And I'll sustain it to the very end.
Amen.
And so that's really been a word of encouragement for our family because it's like God knows right where we're at.
He absolutely does.
This is his ministry.
Absolutely. And we always have to remember that. We are workers. We are ambassadors in the kingdom of God, Jan.
That's right.
That's what we are. We don't own this ministry.
No.
And this is God's ministry. God started it. And I want to be a good ambassador for Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Because what we're doing here, we're not building a ministry so we can get rich.
Right.
Because we're not getting rich. But the fact is that we're building a kingdom, Jan.
That's right.
And your dad worked in a kingdom his whole life.
Yep.
And then God said, okay, now, here you guys go. I've got this big, huge ministry established. Now, you guys are going to help. You guys are going to watch the thing come to pass. And like God stepped back and basically said, watch what I'm doing, guys.
Right.
And this is the life we live. It's one. So we go to Israel, but I really wasn't scared. And back when all that stuff was happening, I knew that God was leading and guiding us because he still had a huge role for us in the end time.
Right.
I wasn't afraid. And so this is how we live our lives, Jan, is God is helping us. He's with us. He still does miracles. We've had people healed. We've had awesome moves of God, people filled with the Holy Ghost on the trip. And I'm looking forward to going here in another 20 days, I can tell you that. And all the moves of God that we've had at our prophecy conferences. This last one in Forest Lake, we had 2 people baptized on Sunday. God was moving. It was just an awesome time. We established Bible studies all over the world. The Bible study we have, one of the things that has happened post this Hamas situation, the missionary that we have over there, I worked with him. I teach a Bible study every Wednesday at 2 o'clock to people here in the United States, Europe, the Middle East and Southeast Asia, they all join on a Zoom call, and I'm teaching them the prophecies of the Bible. Many of them have never heard prophecy taught in their life.
Right.
And yet, I know they need to know know and understand what's coming in the end time. And so, wow, God's building his kingdom. Satan's building a physical kingdom. World government, world religion, the mark of the beast. But God, you're either going to be part of one of the two kingdoms. I'm going to be part of God's kingdom. You are too, because you're super glued to me till this thing's over with. And our kids and everybody else that listens to us, Jan, our goal is to build the kingdom of God and get people to heaven. That's what this is all about. Amen. It's not about me getting famous. It's not about you getting famous. It's us about making sure Jesus is famous.
Right.
That's the goal. I don't care if they know my name, but I want them to know his name, because that's the only saving name. Acts 4:12, neither is there salvation in any other, for there's no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. That name is Jesus Christ. I'm going to put that name on everybody's radar until I hear that trumpet. Amen. God bless everybody, and thank you for joining us on the End Time Show.